Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our continuing ESA webinar series. We'll get started here in just a little bit, let a couple more people join. We're going to try to make today's presentation a little interactive, so from time to time we might ask you either to either respond using the question feature or the chat feature, just for some feedback as we're going along. And we'll just give us a few seconds and we'll get started here. Okay, once again, welcome everyone. As a reminder, all of these are recorded and you can be found on our website later today, and I'll also get a copy of Daryl's presentation, I hope, as a PDF that we can post and share with you. Today's webinar is sponsored by Hamden and Associates, so I thank them for helping us out today. And our webinar today is on the 5 W's of bringing e-learning to your company with Daryl Baker of Keldar Leadership. And Keldar has helped out ESA's board and management with a lot of governance work and helping us with our business plan and our strategic thinking, and has really helped us. So hopefully you'll all find this valuable. And I'm going to turn it over to Daryl, and then I'll be back at the end, as always, to field the questions and close it up. So Daryl, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to spend a bit of time with everyone this afternoon here. Certainly a little different format than what we're often used to. We are usually in the same room with people, or if we're even doing a webinar or some type of a Zoom call or something, we're actually getting to see the participants and have some interaction. So it's a little different format for us, but we'll be just fine. And as Joe mentioned, there'll be a few times throughout the next hour where we're going to just sort of pause for a second, get a little bit of feedback, a little bit of insight from the people on the call, and then move on again to the next section. And so what I'm going to do at this point in time is I'm just going to shut down my camera here and just basically work off of the PowerPoint presentation, and then come back to the camera maybe right at the end of the day for the questions at that point in time. So I'll shut the camera off right now, move to the presentation. And yeah, I want to just let people know that with this presentation deck, we're kind of covering off a number of different things. We want to talk a little bit about the learning experience that people can have, talk about some of the different options that are available, and certainly obviously get to e-learning and why that might be a successful way to do some training at this point in time. So Keldar Leadership's been providing leadership and team development to businesses and organizations for over 16 years. We work with several industries, and environmental services is one of them. And as Joe mentioned, we've worked with the ESA board and the team there over the last couple of years. We've come to realize over time that many of the issues, challenges, and learning needs are similar from industry to industry. Leaders need to know how to craft a vision, align team members, and execute on actions. Team members need to know how to work effectively together. Although technical skills of any trade or industry are critical to the performance of job requirements, we find that interpersonal skills are like the glue that'll hold a team together and truly allow an organization to perform at a high level. Prior to COVID-19, most of what we provided to clients was in-person training. Groups anywhere from 6 to 20 people would gather for a half or full day to learn concepts and take part in group activities. Participants would be learning skills or participating in group activities and working on projects to create a common language in their organization. One of the approaches that we'd often take with organizations, and we'll still be doing that, is just it's going to be a little while before we do it again, mixed number of levels or departments of an organization together to share ideas and perspectives. Many of our clients have often shared with us after the training that it was as much about team building as it was about the specific topic. So we don't think in-person training and development events are gone forever. And we are positive that the benefits of having people physically in the same environment while learning has incredible benefits. So I don't think anything like that's going to go away permanently. However, we do think that the pendulum has swung very far to one side on how we work today, and that pendulum has swung to the virtual world. So this working at distance, working from home, the social distancing, all of this type of thing is in place now and will be for a while. But when the pendulum does swing back, we don't think it's going to come back all the way to where it was before. We decided as a company to spend time converting and are adding course materials to our selection so that we have the ability to facilitate virtually as well as provide e-learning to our clients. So I'm going to ask you a question to start with. So this is the first thing we're going to go to the chat area on. We thought we'd warm you up with something easy here. So just to give a little bit of context, we found that all of our clients either canceled or postponed training and development starting mid-March and went right to the end of May. And to be honest, just before this call, I got another email, somebody canceling something in June. So I'm going to make the assumption that most, if not all of you on the webinar today followed that same pattern of postponement or cancellation of much of your training if you had any booked. So my question to you is, do you think that you might provide training and development in some form to any of your team members in the next 2 to 3 months? If you could just type in either a yes or no in the chat area in your screen, I'm going to get Joe to tell me sort of what he's seeing pop up.
Don't be shy, everyone. Yeah, use the chat feature if you can. If you can see it there on your menu, and just type in yes or no. Help Daryl out here. I got a yes so far.
So just trying to get a little bit of a sense on where people are at. Are they thinking about any?
One no and a bunch of yeses.
Really? Okay, well, that's good to hear. That's very encouraging, actually, because I know that there's a lot of people that are been sort of sitting back and wondering what's next. So let me just jump into the presentation then for today and take you through a few things here. So the first thing is, of course, why are we even talking about training and learning right now? There's been so much uncertainty over the last little while. I know that for us, the last time we were actually in person working with clients was March 12th. And right at that point in time, everything was changing so fast with the whole COVID-19 virus, the issue showing up, and people began having to make very quick decisions without a lot of information. But one thing that was happening is that they were going into a bit of a panic mode actually at first, and then there was a real withdrawal and a retreat from what they were currently working on to try to figure out what this new reality was going to be. So we find that, you know, people now, there's so much distance work that is being done, and that's layered on all kinds of new challenges for people. I mean, they have to figure out how to work differently and how to be still effective. And we also believe that the challenges of working independently from a team, at some point in time, people need to come back into the mix. They need to connect with others in a little different way. We've heard a lot of people that we've talked to and had our conference calls with and our video calls with talk about how they're talking to the same people all the time. And there is a need for people to get back and get some training and development and figure out some new things to talk about. So one of the questions that comes up is, how are people viewing things right now? And again, very encouraging to know that a lot of people are saying that they're taking a look at some training right now. When COVID-19 came into our lives, as well as the downturn in the oil market, those two factors hitting at the same time, certainly in the province of Alberta, is significant. And we've got a lot of people that are really, really reeling. And the word crisis is one that comes up almost on a daily basis, if not several times in a day, that people are talking about crisis and describing things as a crisis. And crisis is very similar to chaos, you might say. And Webster defines chaos as a state of complete confusion. And when you're in crisis, that's a bit how you feel, like you're confused and not sure what the next direction is. But as you start to figure out and get some stability, then you can think about how you might move back towards being a performance-based organization. And that reeling, that feeling of chaos that people are in for a period of time, there's what you have to do is you have to get some stability for people. So the systems and the processes being put in place, even though there is a new work environment, is important. And training and development is one of those systems that you can put in place that gives something for people to grab onto. So I've heard this term pop up quite a bit. You know, we need to survive and thrive. I've heard that from a number of different people over the last little while. And my question, just rhetorically, is if you are an organization that believes that you're going to get through this, that you see a light on the other side, and that you're going to be able to thrive coming out of this, then really this is a great opportunity to make sure that the people on your team are as well equipped as possible for the next surge forward on business. And the fact that it might have to be done a little bit differently might mean that you need to do a little bit of retooling right now. So we're being challenged right now to figure out how far we can go in this whole new work world of working remotely. And the pendulum has swung so far right now to remote work and social distancing that it's just unbelievable compared to just a few months ago. I heard out of the UK that they were talking about how the medical industry has advanced 10 years in about a month as far as their ability to deal with things virtually, things that they would never talk about or think about doing before. All of a sudden, they need to do it. So once you're forced into a situation, all of a sudden you find out how you can work differently. When it swings back, we do believe that people are going to be pretty anxious to spend some time together. They are definitely going to want to get together for whether it's training or teamwork. They're going to want that. However, there's also a whole bunch of discovery that's gone on during this period of time and a realization that some work can happen, a lot of work can happen, where we don't have to do it in the traditional sense. And I think that applies to training as well. We're going to be in a different situation in training development, and actually it's going to probably be an advantage moving forward. And it's just a matter of how you work that advantage in your particular situation, your particular case, in your business. So let's take a look at what we have to focus on right now. We have to learn from the past, so we can go back and think about how people have learned in the past and how they've applied training and how they've retained training, how that's worked. Right now, the present is a little difficult, and so we often say, you know, when you think about the past, when you're moving, if you're driving a vehicle, you don't want to be focusing on the rearview mirror. That's not going to be very helpful for you. You want to be aware of what's behind you, but you don't want to be focused on that. If you drive with your head over the hood, it won't be long before you're in the ditch. So focusing on the present for too long doesn't allow you to see what's coming at you. So really right now, what everybody needs to do is be focusing on the future and what's coming at them down the road and how are they going to adjust and adapt. That's where we're going, is the future. So there's not a lot of point spending time looking in the rear view mirror. So a question that everybody might ask, and I'm going to cover off a few things and then we'll toss it back for you for your feedback on this as well, is why invest in employee training? And so I want you to think back for a second. Earlier in this year, I call it 2020 BC. So in that case, it's really before crisis. And at 2020 BC, before crisis, in January and February, you likely had a whole lot of reasons why you were investing in employee training and development of the people on your team. And those reasons may still be in place. It's just you might have set them aside for a period of time here. So we want to review some of the reasons why we invest in employee training and why that seems to be a good use of dollars. So let's start with the whole piece about attracting and retaining talent. You know, the attraction principle is pretty simple. To attract others, we must be attractive. And really, where we find out about our attractiveness is the word on the street. What's the word on the industry as far as what it's like to work with your particular company or organization? Is it the kind of place that invests in their people? Is it the kind of place that it's a good career as opposed to a job that you have a chance to grow and develop? We also find out that the word on the street is around what was it like to work there as far as the leadership, as far as the supervision that you got, as far as the oversight that you received. And one of the biggest reasons why people leave organizations is poor leadership. And another reason is the difficulty of working within teams. And both the leadership development piece and the team development piece are parts that people can learn. They can get better at either one of them. And so when people feel like they're not being appreciated or they're not given an opportunity in an organization or they don't think there's advancement, then they may go elsewhere. And you know, a perfect example of this is when people come home at the end of the day. Right now you're at the home, at your home maybe all the time, but if you're back in a traditional workplace and you come home at the end of the day and you're talking to your significant other and you're talking about your day and you didn't have a good day, a lot of the time you're talking about the personal interactions you had with people as opposed to a technical issue that happened. And so this whole idea about building the capacity of people to work more effectively in leadership roles and with teams, that's a pretty key part of training, and it makes a difference on the attraction and retention of talent for sure. It also allows you to identify those that have a future. So when you put people into a training program and give them an opportunity to learn, they also have an opportunity to contribute within that program. And they have a chance to give back at that point in time. So we often find that the best people in almost any walk of life, whether it's sports, whether it's theater, whether it's the work environment, best people, really good people, they want to get better. They want to get better. So they're very committed at that point in time to try to take their career to the highest level. So again, if they're in an environment that promotes that and encourages that, they enjoy that and it gives them a chance to shine. And if you see somebody who's really shining in a training situation, that's likely going to give you a lot of insight as to how they might contribute more for your organization. So we find that people can really level up if they have that opportunity to get some training. Engagement. This is a pretty key part. There's a lot of studies that have been done, and Gallup does a study pretty much every year, and amazingly enough, around the globe, there's a very high degree of people that are not engaged in their work. In fact, it's an incredibly low percentage that are really, really actively engaged. It ranges between 15 and 25%. And then there's a lot of people that are just kind of putting in time. But there's no doubt about it that if people are given an opportunity to learn more about their position, understand how their role fits into the large purpose of a particular company their company that they work with, they're going to be more engaged. They get it then. They get what they're doing, how it contributes to the end goal. So we find that this is often the case, and it also tells you that when you have training that the company values you. And being valued within any situation in life just immediately makes a person want to do a bit more. If they know people value their contributions, they're going to step up and do a bit more. And of course, the collective understanding or the understanding of the collective goals of an organization is incredibly important. So training, again, just gives you a chance to reinforce that with the people that are attending. And let's talk about this. Saving money. Money is a pretty big issue right now. Revenues are down for an awful lot of the clients that we work with, or their expenses are up because of the particular work that they are doing. They may be finding that they need a lot more materials, a lot more resources at this point in time to do the work that they were doing before. They could be exceptionally busy and needing more people or having more overtime. But then, like I said, there's a lot of people that we're working with that right now, their revenues are really constrained, and they're really just trying to hang on to the people that they have until things get a little bit better. Well, one of the things that training can do for sure is that if people are better equipped for the work that they've been hired to do, they're going to be more effective. And if you can get a better result with people, then that's going to be just obviously better for your bottom line. It's really huge also about how teams work together. Effective teams is a competitive advantage. And if you can have people that understand how to fit in and work more effectively with multiple groups within your company, you are going to find that your overall effectiveness and your overall results are greatly improved. And we have found from discussion and just hearing what people have fed back to us that an awful lot of people, when they take their technical training, wherever it was a college or university or wherever they took their technical training, they didn't get a lot of courses or a lot of training on interpersonal skills. Instead, they found that when they got to their workplace and they started working with others and they had that supervisor they're working with, that's when they started to get some feedback and some information on working with others. And unfortunately, that can be a pretty rough place to learn your skills. If you don't have others around you that are very skilled in effectiveness as far as communicating and working in teams, then you can really struggle with it, or in fact, learn some really poor habits. So there's no doubt about it that some investment in training can definitely help the bottom line. And the last thing we've got for you on this topic is it helps shape the future of your company. Those that you're going to be putting into training and development, generally you're putting them there because you see a future for them. It's either going to help them with their career development, or it's something specific within their work that is going to make them more effective in what they do. So these same people, when they get put into training, they want to give back to the company. They learn more about the company, they want to give back more, and so therefore they're in a better position to help shape the future as you move forward. So this is our opportunity to develop leaders and develop stronger team players. And Joe, I thought maybe we could just toss it back again to the group and ask maybe they could put a couple other thoughts into the chat box as far as what are some of the other reasons that their company or organization is investing in training right now. Or maybe it's not right now, but in the past they've invested in training. Have anybody taking up on that question?
Not yet. Let's give them a couple seconds to answer. Yeah, so either the chat or you can use the question feature and respond to Daryl's question there if you would like. Daryl, you want to repeat the question for everyone?
Sure, absolutely. So we just went through a number of reasons why people might invest in training for their team members, and I was just curious if there's something maybe we missed, and maybe there's another great reason that somebody has come across on why it's a good idea to invest in their people through some training and development.
We have one. You mentioned employee engagement, customer engagement, and retention is also positively impacted.
That's excellent. Really like that. Really like that.
Agreed.
Yeah, so not just from the internal perspective, but by our folks being better trained, it has a very positive impact on our clients, our customers who we're interacting with. 100%. You know, we hear that a lot. We hear that a lot when we're working with people. That becomes a big challenge is working directly with those customers. So excellent. Anything else?
No. Oh wait. As an event plan, oh man, I got a whole bunch. We opened the floodgates, Daryl.
Well, we'll take a couple more anyways, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Just a comment, as an event planner, we're always in need of new ideas, updates on technologies. Allows organizations to expand into new opportunities and diversify income streams.
Nice. That's excellent. For sure.
Compliance reasons. Staff morale, need to expand knowledges and services offered internally or externally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are great. These are really great. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate that. It just really reiterates that very big importance of having that training and development on a regular basis for your organization. For all those reasons that have been cited by yourselves and the ones that I brought to the table here, there's just a lot of reason to invest in our folks. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, if you're of the optimistic approach that you're going to get through the other side of this and that you've got a great future with your company, then you want to make sure that those people are ready for that future. And all those are great reasons to invest in people. So let's talk a little bit about how we can go about that. So we will get to the e-learning pretty quickly here, but here's some of the reasons, or not the reasons, but the approaches here. So how and where to provide training and development. That's an important thing to look at as you're making your decisions of where to invest your money. And it just kind of, well, let's just get right into it here. So in-person classroom, that is where we at Keldar Leadership have provided the vast majority of our learning and development. Not all of it, but an awful lot of it has been done in person in classroom. And, you know, some of the pros to that is, you know, there's facilitated discussion. So you can guide the discussion and ask some great questions that draw out some ideas from the group. There's a lot of ease of interaction because you're all there together. You might be at tables or whatever the case might be, working together. There's hands-on activities that you can do in small groups. Side discussions happen all the time. You know, you have your breaks and you're talking to people about what's happening in the field and what your experiences are. And it turns out to be some great team building. So there's some really great pros there about the in-person classroom. There are a few cons, you might say. You have a set time for that scheduled training. So maybe it's 2 hours, or maybe it's 3 hours, or maybe it's 1 day. But it is a confined time frame that people are going to be there, and people might have, either questions or ideas, or they want to explore something in more detail, or they want a little more time, and it all has to fit into the same time. Additionally, you have to pick a time. So therefore, you have to find a time in everybody's schedule that's going to work, that's going to allow for them to travel and get there and spend some time there. And sometimes people are traveling from quite a distance, which then takes you into another piece, which is travel costs and facility costs and the cost of the facilitator and catering and these types of things. So there's a number of different cons as well, but there's a lot of value that comes in person for sure. Virtual training, which we're seeing more of that pop up all the time, and I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's here to stay, and it's going to definitely form a percentage of the training that's done with folks. It's got a lot of pros as well. Now, it still gets people together, so it's different than what we're experiencing right now, which is the webinar approach. In the virtual training, you're going to have a smaller group. Maybe you're going to have 6 to 12 people together, maybe as many as 15, but not usually much larger than that size of a group. And you're going to have the ability through technology to break people up into breakout rooms. You can use whiteboards, you can use video. You can do an awful lot of the same things you can do in in-person training. It's just that it falls short on that personal interaction. You can even set it up so you can have virtual coffee breaks where people can talk, but it's not going to feel quite the same as being in person for sure. And you won't likely get quite the same level of feeling of team coming out of it. I know we were talking amongst our team just earlier, well, last week, I guess we were talking about it, and a couple of people were referring to some of the virtual training that they'd gone through and how it's really difficult for them to remember the people that were in that virtual training program versus if they're in an in-person training program, they can definitely remember the people, their names, some of their personal stories and this type of thing. So you have to work a little harder the virtual training to get that kind of a feel. But there's some nice advantages to it because you can jump onto it fast. You don't have to travel anywhere. As long as you've got internet that's reliable, you'll be able to jump onto it and jump off it, and you can replicate a lot of the in-person activities. Yeah, so that's kind of the virtual training. Now, we like to suggest this is a good piece as well, virtual training plus coaching. Now, coaching is an exceptionally valuable activity for organizations and companies to get involved in because a coach, an executive coach or leadership coach or personal coach, they're able to draw out a lot of what's within people already. And that may seem kind of funny, but if we can provide virtual training, so there's a training environment that people go to and they've learned some skills and activities, and then they couple that with a coach going back over those things with them, and a coach might work one-on-one or with a small group of 2 or 3 people, and then draw back out from those people, how would you utilize, how would you actually execute on some of the learning that you took away from this training in your work area. And by having a good discussion that way, people are able to see how to apply the learning a little bit more effectively. Now, you don't necessarily have to go to an external coach. You could certainly just have the same discussion with a supervisor or a mentor, but you want to set this up so that you can get the greatest value possible out of your virtual training. Another approach that's quite popular, as long as it's done correctly, is 360 feedback plus coaching. Now, 360 feedback could be just done on its own. However, we do believe that a coach approach is really valuable in this. Now, when I say 360 feedback done correctly, we've heard an awful lot of horror stories about people that have tried to do 360 feedback and it just hasn't done well, hasn't gone well for the person. And so like our process that we take people through is we have a kickoff call, we call it, with 2 or 3 or 4 people involved. It might be the boss, it might be the individual, it might be somebody from human resources and a couple of people from our team. And we go through exactly what that person will be experiencing. And then we have an email that goes out to everybody that's going to respond to the 360 feedback, letting them know exactly what they're being asked to respond to and where the value is going to come from, and we're really asking them to help this person out. Then they go through the process of getting feedback from it could be peers, direct reports, others. We can put quite a few categories together, and when they get that information back, it's going to identify where their strengths are and their areas of development, and then you can apply some coaching to either develop a developmental plan for that individual or give them some specific next steps for them to work on and some goal setting. So it can be pretty effective, and it can be done, really, everything can be done remotely. Nothing has to be done really in person. We often will do this all over the phone or through the internet. And now we get to our self-directed learning and e-learning. And what's some of the advantages of the e-learning is that it can be very specific. So, we can go right to a specific skill that somebody is needing to learn and deliver that. It's direct in the sense that we don't have to cover 15 different topics. We can go to the very specific topic. Very flexible in a time. A person doesn't have to set into their calendar a very specific 3-hour session 2 weeks from Friday to do their self-directed e-learning. They can decide when they want to do it, and they can go at their own pace. It can be just-in-time learning, and just-in-time learning is a pretty valuable thing. Is that when a need shows up, all of a sudden you can just jump in there and provide that for a person. And if you do some coaching sessions and involve some regular discussion that comes out of the learning, that is also going to be exceptionally valuable. So without a plan with self-directed learning, that can be problematic for people. Not everybody's going to want to just take this on by themselves and work all the way through the learning on their own. They're going to find it difficult to keep on track. So we do suggest a learning plan that involves, again, either coaching, external or internal, but some regular check-ins and using some particular tools that we've developed that will help a person take away some learnings, some ahas, and some action plans, and set some goals around their learning. And that is going to help it be a little bit more sticky. So we'll make this a fairly quick check-in with people, but Joe, again, do you want to see, here's the question we'll ask people. We've covered off a number of different training methods. Any other way that people are receiving their training right now? How else is training delivered in your organization?
Yeah, Phil, I guess the chat's not working, so use the question feature, which seems to be working fine. So feel free to type in your questions. Give everyone a minute here to type something in.
You know, we know that there's a lot of great material that's out there right now with webinars. So that's another way that people can use, is just using webinars, going to TED Talks, going to some video training, using a coach, just a coach on our own. Those are some ways. I don't know, did anybody else have anything else that they shared?
Professional association webinars, on-demand learning, webinars. That's what I've got so far. Oh, LinkedIn Learning, edX. Yeah, I'm actually using edX as well, which is from Harvard University.
Okay, nice.
Yep.
Nice. Well, those are some great ideas for sure. So let's take a little look here on remembering training, because training is one of those tricky things, and we hear from people all the time about the concern around the stickiness of training. And we've got our friend the elephant on one side that's supposed to have this fantastic memory, and the other side we have Dory from Finding Nemo, who didn't have much of a memory at all. And we all learn at different rates, and we also retain at different rates. But there's a few philosophies or best practices, if you will, that ensure that training sticks a little bit more. And repetition is one of the things, and using multiple ways of learning is another. So here's a diagram here to take a look at the learning pyramid, often known also as the cone of learning. And we can see at the top the retention rates of different approaches to learning. So we've got our passive teaching methods versus the participatory teaching methods. And lecture, reading, audiovisual demonstration, that stuff at the top, that we're going to find that that's going to fall into our e-learning and to an extent some of our virtual learning approaches. At the bottom, the participatory teaching methods, group discussions, we can get some of that from virtual for sure. Practice is something that can be woven back into e-learning as well, with some coaching brought into it. And the teaching others, well, that again is how you set things up. If you set up that through the e-learning process, that part of what someone needs to do at the end of taking a program or a course, that they then need to share their learning with another group, you'll find that that greatly enhances their retention of that information. So this just shows you that there's some particular ways of getting information that just lend themselves to higher retention rates than others. So you have to get a little creative when you don't have that opportunity to get people together as easily. Another graph I just wanted to show you as well is the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. And this is something that could be a lot of you have seen this, I'm not sure. It's been around for a long, long time. But this thinking that when you take in information, we tend to lose it really, really fast. If we've just heard it once and we don't have any other way of getting the information but just being told it and we've heard it and that's it, we can lose that information incredibly quickly. So if we can layer on some multiple ways of going back over the information, reviewing the information, we can find that we can increase that retention at a very, very significant, to a very significant extent. So this is where we're thinking that multiple ways of learning is going to be best for people. Right now, unfortunately, we have a few less ways to learn than we would have, just a few months ago. But hopefully, when we see things open back up again, we'll get back to where we can spend more time together. So just why e-learning? Let's go through a few reasons why e-learning might be beneficial for you or your organization at this point in time, as well as in the future. We think right now it's valuable because it's a chance to re-engage people, get them working on some skills, give them something to focus on where they've got a lot of flexibility with their time. And as things start to pick up and ramp up, where they have maybe less time, and also maybe where we've got a little bit more opportunity to get in person, and we might find that e-learning kind of shifts back as far as its timing. It may be something that people are getting used to and liking, but becomes something that they layer on after taking a virtual training program or perhaps an in-person program. But right now, it's a great opportunity to jump on a bit of learning and open up a new conversation with somebody. So just some of the reasons why e-learning can be very beneficial right now is, again, build skills. We've got a broad library of different topics that people can access to build skills. And what it allows you to do is when you identify a specific skill that somebody needs and could apply right away, immediately you can say, well, let's get you set up on this particular training program and you can work on it. And they don't have to necessarily do something that's the same as somebody else. They can just be very specific to what they're doing. And then that coach follow-up, that supervisor follow-up, to work with them on building some goals and some action plans around those skills will allow them to implement that new learning immediately and reinforce it, which is going to improve the retention. Sometimes people take training and then they can't implement it right away. They don't have an opportunity to use it right away. So they take the training in April, but they don't really get a chance to utilize it till August. And by that time, again, based on what we saw with the Ebbinghaus curve, we're going to lose a lot of that information. So if we can figure out what skills people need and apply it right away, that's going to be more beneficial. As we've talked a lot about today, combining it with other learning methods is going to win the day. It's going to be very valuable to do that. So if we have a chance to be in person with others, it does definitely improve the stickiness. But if we don't have that opportunity, then again, yeah, the virtual training could be pretty good, but then combined with some e-learning, again, that's going to improve the stickiness and the retention of the learning. And as I mentioned in the 360s, this is a tremendous opportunity if you do a 360 feedback loop with somebody and it identifies 3 or 4 skills that they need to focus on. Now you can give them a very specific training program to work on over the next 3-4 months, and then maybe run another 360 to test for how have we improved. Have we been able to move the needle a little bit on that? So these are good things. Improve retention. We find that with these interpersonal skills, a lot of times people will get most of their feedback or information from their direct supervisor. And that person may or may not be really skilled at a particular interpersonal skill. And furthermore, they may not be the best at actually teaching somebody or facilitating that discussion so that other person learns. So this can be pretty helpful that if a supervisor is, say, trying to introduce something, say, giving and receiving feedback or some problem solving or handling a difficult conversation or working through conflict, and they're trying to share those ideas with somebody, yet they just don't know exactly what to tell the person. They can say, great, this is something that I think is very important in your work with others. We're going to get you set up on this e-learning course, and then we can talk about it and see how this might actually improve some things or help you in the workplace. So again, it can really help your supervisor on the retention of the ideas that they want to have initiated with their team members by using the e-learning. This is nice because it's very easy to set up. Given today where it's not that easy to get together, this is pretty handy. Everything can be set up remotely. So you can have your own administration of a learning management system set up. So it's typically called just LMS is what you'll hear people talk about. So a learning management system where you can actually identify and determine the courses that people need, and then you can follow how their progress is in those particular courses. And all of this, from setting up the administration to setting up the courses, can all be done remotely. There's no need to actually get right in the same place with somebody. On time, as needed learning. So that's kind of something that's pretty nice feature about e-learning, is rather than having to wait till we have enough people to run a class at a particular workplace, or maybe there's a skill you want somebody to learn, but it's only offered a couple times a year and then they have to travel someplace. When you identify a need, you can set up the learning right away. So, you know, the old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So when you've identified a need, right away you can go ahead and apply some nice learning for that person and can help them get the advantage of that learning right away. Another thing that we've often seen is that 2 or 3 people need a particular training program. And so a company says, okay, we're going to offer this training program and you 15 people are going to take it. So we have enough people there. Well, you got 12 people kind of wondering why they're in this training program and 3 people are getting the value. So I'm not saying that everybody can't get value from an awful lot of different training, but this is going to allow this to be very specific and timely for an individual. Customized training programs, again, pretty nice. So if you go to a restaurant and there's a group of 6 of you, you get to order what you want off the menu and go ahead and have your own meal, and everybody enjoys that. Well, people enjoy that with customized training as well. And it's nice because maybe one person needs 4 courses, another person needs 6 courses. You've got a number of people that need the same course, and so you might have them go through the course, and then you develop some chat rooms or some discussions between them to say, what did you take away and how would you apply that? So you've got a lot of different ways of playing around with this e-learning, but the nice part is, again, you can customize it to the particular individual and deal with their training needs and their career plans. Another great advantage is focus. And I know it's kind of hard to look at this slide actually, but the focus that you can get through people getting that training and seeing where they can apply the value is pretty good. People like to learn and grow. That's one thing we've heard over and over again. People don't want to be stagnant. They want to learn and grow and be the best they can possibly be within their career. So if you give them this training where they can focus on some improvement and career development, it gives them focus. It gives them a way to kind of cut through some of the noise that's maybe happening out there right now and say, okay, I'm going to focus on developing this skill and work on this particular program. And sometimes right now, people are needing something to focus on. It helps them get more engaged in their work, because right now, for some people, they are finding it difficult to stay focused because they have a small group of people that they connect with all the time, and then there's the broad global world of news, and they're just have nothing in between. So giving them something to work on from a training perspective can help with the focus. Last point I have here is maximizing your training budget. And again, we're huge believers, and I don't think we're going to change that thought process, that if we can get people together at least once in a while in a group, that what they're going to take away from in-person training will be hard to match. And even though it's going to cost you more money, it's going to have huge value. However, it's just not possible at this particular moment. So what is possible is to do some other types of training, whether it be the virtual, whether it be the e-learning, and that becomes incredibly cost effective because you don't have any of these budget constraints around travel and rooms and setup and facilitators. You are paying directly for a seat for somebody to do some learning, but you don't have other costs associated with it. Or most of the costs you'd have would be internal costs that you're already having for like for example, the supervisor working with that person to maximize the program. You may decide to invest some extra dollars into an external coach, but that's still going to be much more cost effective for you than the in-person training typically is. But again, it's a value trade-off on this. So this really covers off most of what I was hoping to talk about on the training. As far as from an e-learning perspective, I just wanted to sort of set the table that it's one way to deliver training. It's not necessarily always going to be the best way to deliver training, but it's a great way to introduce concepts, get some specific skills in place. It's very cost effective. And once you're able to bring in some other types of training down the road, you're going to be able to build on what you've started with the e-learning. And then down the road, like I said earlier, you may flip. You may decide you're going to do in-person training, and then by helping to help the retention rate, you add on the e-learning based on some specific topics that related back to the in-person training. So I talked to Joe before we started today and said that, you know, we are going to be able to explain what a cost factor would be on the e-learning as well, and that we would provide a very special rate for the association. So let me flip to that slide just so you can see this. What the normal cost for this would be for a learning seat, and what a learning seat is for 12 months, an individual would be able to access a very significant library of different courses, and it would be $300 for the year. But what we're going to do for the association and ESA members is that they would be able to get the rate of $245 per seat for 12 months. Now, you might within your company have 10 people, you might have 20 people, you might have 100 people. It just depends on the size of your company. But you'd be able to identify what you needed and where you wanted to spend your energy on e-learning, and then get the seats that were necessary for you and develop the training program for those particular people. So one seat, you know, maybe somebody's going to take 2 programs and that's all they're going to take. Somebody else, it might be 8 programs. So there's a wide variety, and it'd be based on what it is you're trying to accomplish. So the information, and again, this slide deck is being recorded and be posted, so a person can come back to this and click on these links and get additional information. But this is really what what's in place for ESA. So what I guess we're up to now, Joe, is questions. And so we can open it up for questions. And if it turns out that there's a lot of questions, we will either set aside and reschedule a sort of a follow-up question session, or I'll just answer them directly from your emails or your requests. So we'll just kind of open it up to questions, Joe, and between the two of us, we'll try to field them. And I guess I'll throw the camera back on for now.
Great, thanks, Daryl. And thanks, Keldar, and once again, thanks to Hamden and Associates for sponsoring this today. So yes, feel free to, if you have any questions for Daryl, to throw them into the questions, and I will field the best I can to Daryl. Also, again, the presentation is recorded, and the PDF will be posted hopefully later today or first thing in the morning. And yeah, thanks again, Daryl. Wait for any questions. Do you have anything else? Any words of wisdom for people?
Well, you know, it was, first of all, it's a pleasure to get a chance to share some of this information and just some different ideas around the training. But I would have to say that, you know, some of my earlier comments about how it can feel like we're very much in a state of chaos right now, and we're trying to figure out what's going forward. And I know, like, just for example, our own company, we had to create our own pivot plan and take a look at the next 3 to 4 months and try to figure out what's going to unfold without really knowing what's going to unfold. So that's something that we're doing for companies and organizations as well, is just saying, you know, let's have a call together and see if we can help you navigate through that, because that's sort of where you might integrate some training and development as you're thinking about that plan on getting ready for the next wave of activity.
Mm-hmm. Still no questions, so I'll give them another minute or so for questions. But can you give an example of some of the courses that would be in that library of if someone was to take you up on the offer?
Sure, absolutely. Again, on our website, we've got the categories listed, but there's in the neighborhood of about 140 different courses that are available. And there's different categories, like for example, there'd be sales and marketing, there would be management courses, administrative courses, career development courses, a few technical courses on some computer skills as well. But it's kind of thing that, like the person, like I focused a lot of the talk today on interpersonal skills, because that's truly, as I said before, that glue that holds a company together. And so there's a lot of really good information that can be pulled from these courses on how to interact better in teams or from person to person. So a lot of great skills there.
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions. Oh, wait, just as I said that, one pops up. What online tool would work the best for a collaboration of session of, say, 5 people where they would take turns leading a calculation problem, which they would normally have done on a whiteboard in a face-to-face session?
That's an interesting question. Well, I can't speak from specific experience on that. However, what I can say is that, a platform probably like the one we're using today, which is GoToWebinar, they likely have all of those pieces as well. We've been using Zoom from our company quite a bit, and you can easily break people into breakout rooms using whiteboards and sharing screens, and then bring people back. And you can break up into, I think it's as many as 50 different rooms. So you're just talking about 5 groups, but that should give you an opportunity to collaborate as a group, be together, break up, come back together again, and share information. Hopefully that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Zoom works good. I think Microsoft Teams might work well too.
Yes.
Yeah, there are a lot of good options, and the world's going that way. Got a thanks for that. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions. So once again, Daryl, thank you. If Daryl might be sending out a handout to people, and it'll have his contact information if you want to get more information about e-learning and learning and how CalDAR can help your organization, because it has helped ESA and our board and their organization. So once again, thanks, Daryl. Thanks, CalDAR, and thanks, Hamden and Associates. Take care, everyone.
Have a great day.